Welcome back to Trekyards, everybody. He's Commander Cockings.
He's Captain Foley.
And today we're here to talk about the USS ANAXIMANDER, a Defiant class ship, as seen in Season 5, Episode 9 of Lower Decks, Section 31 ship.
And that one post-credit sequence that we looked at previously. Now, obviously, we'll disclaimer up front, it is a Defiant from our universe. It's not the Defiant, it's not built at the same time as the Defiant, as in this is many years later, and it's also a specialised ship. So everything we're about to say is a comparison of what they did do, not necessarily expectation that it has to match the Defiant. Disclaimer given.
Perfect disclaimer. I'm glad you said that, actually, yeah.
Don't get annoyed at us, we're just doing the job that you'll want us to do, even if every single thing we're going to say is, yeah, but it's not the Defiant.
We get it.
Said that up front. So, Stuart, how do you feel seeing this Defiant-ish class again?
They definitely had some beautiful shots of it in the show. We even learned new features, like the Defiant class can land. It's got landing legs and a landing like elevator, like a boarding thing, which is very cool. I think at some point we will do a comparison between the first time we saw this as a post-credit thing to now, because that Defiant or that ship was distinctly different.
Yeah, I just went back. I thought I was just hoping that as we did that, I was like, that's not the same ship.
Yeah, so we will compare them. I mean, that's not necessarily this ship. It could just be another one of the Section 31 ships, because there were quite a few differences between it and the Defiant class. This one feels more like in line with the Defiant. So,
well, and also that one was a ship he happened to be rescued on. This ship is a ship that he is traveling the multiverse in. It's not the same thing. But yeah, absolutely.
So what did you think when you saw it? I know you kind of love the Defiant, so.
Well, I love it because it's a very small ship. So the model they made on Deep Space Nine was really good, both physical and CG. I've also worked with that quite a bit for Trekyards, etc. And then we built our own version, and it's just, it's fun to see the differences in the small things, the big things, and get to light right. It's a fun ship to get right because it's got such a distinct feel. No, it's great. It's dark, and I know it's missing things, and it's doing some things that I was about to say is wrong, but there are choices that we'll have to deconstruct. That said, it was thoroughly used. I've done lots of quick flybys of her, and she looks very nice in motion, and they did a few of those. I was like, I done that shot, basically. No, very well used, very nice. Odd use of weapons and where from, and they were very keen to continuously do new placements for things. So they definitely had a lot of fun using her, I could sense.
Yeah, well, I noticed that as well, and I thought, well, Section 31 ship, it's just a different design. Also has no hull markings, no registry, no name. Again, Section 31, keep things under the radar a little bit.
But obviously, cartoon ship, but they've long had access to the studio asset, so they could have literally pulled the one from 1999, I suppose. It still looks fantastic, we'll see in this episode, and just retextured it, whatever. It would be very, very easy. But obviously, make a bit of custom is also cool. And Defiant's also one of the ships that has a lot of reference. There's no shortage of model, CG, fan.
That being said, there are a lot of different small changes between all those models.
Well, the detailing, yes. I kind of mean because the miniature stay the same, and the CG caught up to the miniature over time. So you are correct, of course, if you look at the early CG ones, but those are kind of hard to find more so. So yeah, you're right. There's certainly, if you ignore the few outliers, then the definitive sort of design is easiest to find. Especially Doug posts loads of he went and saw it in storage once. Like, oh, that's an extreme close-up. That's cool. Speaking of cool, here are two shots of front and back. Proportionally, instantly I'm like, that's basically perfect. Because I know the ship pretty well, and it feels really nice.
They say it never looked quite this good. They really made it look good in this episode. They definitely highlighted it as an important part of the episode, and as such had some nice beauty passes and some nice shots. So I think it looks utterly fantastic. And I'm not the biggest Defiant fan, but something about this episode I love it.
Well, I wonder if it is that very dark paint scheme, almost monotone, dark grey that you like, because I know you like that sort of darker paint, because I think the trailer looks much nicer, but it's more nuanced, it's got more detailing, there's a lot more effort put into it. This is a cartoon excellent replica, but it's a lot of shortcuts which then create a different feel. Like I said, it's more monotone, like it's although luckily no giant black, because I was worried it was going to be, we're a Section 31, let's have black plating everywhere, and it's like, yeah,
thing I noticed here, the last picture when it was in warp, the deflector was on and bright blue, and here it's more in like a standby mode, almost like you see in the motion picture before the Enterprise leaves dry dock, where it was yellow. Here it seems to be like in more of a standby mode because it's white, and I kind of like that look. It looks really good. I'm not sure if they did that in DS9. Honestly, I think it was always blue, wasn't it? Do you remember?
Well, I mean, it's still blue here as well. It's got a gentle blue hue. That yeah, I didn't notice that per se. I think that's definitely just down to color grading. This artist might have done differently, or whatnot. I can't imagine that was intentional. Like I resonate more with this more passive blue. It's neither, right? It's not meant to be bright blue neon. It's not meant to be that pastel. So, but I think it just changed between the shots. One interesting thing to note is that they actually have the impulse engines on, which are the red circles, which are a sometimes on, sometimes not, depending which version, which model, etc. Like, for example, the First Contact Defiant, which was a scratch-built CG model, really kitted this thing out, and like every glow's working because they could obviously afford to do it for those like 3 shots it's in, or even if that. So that everything's working, whereas in other versions, a lot of stuff isn't interactively lighting. So it's nice to see the impulse engines on. You're right to have them off, you're right to have them on. It's both, but I think it adds a lot to see the redder than blue, which of course takes into they have blue Bassards, which means they're not Bassards because Bassards are not blue. What are they if not Bassards?
Don't know. That's a very good question.
Because they kind of got that wrong as a mistake. There's not a single shot of it in the show with blue, so that's an active choice to make it different. No one's mistaking that. And also, if you're that concerned, you could change it in post doing a hue shift, right? You do it as a separate layer, you could do that. So that's intentional. So why is it blue?
Are they always red in Deep Space Nine?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very consistent, yeah.
Well, that's why I like. Maybe that's why it kind of pops a little bit differently for me. Something about it in the show really looked fantastic. I like the blue there.
Well, like I say, it's monotone. It's dark with blue glows is the overriding thing, which colder feel, which fits more Section 31. I mean, try deflector. I don't remember. I do remember part of the episode where they do fire 2 beams, but I thought. I mean, I know a shot where it fires from the quantum launchers. But there might have been a shot earlier when they fire from the Bassards. Because I wouldn't mind if those are 2 secondary deflectors designed to open the rifts. I mean, you don't need Bassards if you're going to pack enough fuel for the trip.
Yeah, because those are basically hydrogen collectors, in case anybody doesn't know. And they kind of suck in fuel.
Yeah. Very specific purpose. So if you don't need that purpose, you could... So that would have been really interesting. But it's such a difference to have that, or not have that, as the case may be. Another thing to, of course, note is that for some reason... The pulse phaser turrets, green and red blinky, which obviously aren't correct. So those aren't pulse phasers because that's just not what they do. So why do they have blinkies where so this ship has no pulse phasers, which we don't see it fire. It only fires phasers. So this thing has not got pulse phasers. No shuttle bay. Well, no, it doesn't because they're glowing. Why would you remove a Section 31 ship to have pulse phasers unless you're unless you're into university and you don't want to seem hostile, to remove the guns, because they have visible gun points, right? They're not hidden like torpedoes or phaser strips.
They just have them on low charge, and they change the frequency of the the power settings so they glow different, so they look like blinkies.
Again, intentional choice to remove the pulse phasers. Every bit of tech there was just different. It's interesting. Speaking of interesting, the next shot is, you're not hiding any sins close, top shot in full lighting. Can't really see any better, could you?
This is where I definitely noticed there was a lack of registry and name of the ship. But again, Section 31, secret organization. You might not want to put anything on your ship, right? So, but it looks great. Again, I do like that color scheme, and I don't know. I just was really impressed with the way this thing looked in this episode as a whole.
Does it feel any different though?
No, not to me.
Because my brain says a lot of subtle things, right? Like
loads.
You've
worked with the ship more than a lot of people have, so.
Well, indeed. But it's so interesting because it is, like I say, it's more monotone. Boy, the red pops in a way that it doesn't normally. Obviously it's a cartoon, so the greebling's less. Like in those 2 little pockets, there's little cut-ins in the front. Greebling is simplified. Fine. But you can see on this, I mean, it shows it well. The phaser, the pulse phaser turret blinkies are green and red, which is the correct side of blinkies, but the actual blinkies on the side of the hull are red and green, which is the incorrect side. So they've misaligned the main blinkies, but correctly assigned the new blinkies for the phaser turrets, which that doesn't make sense. They've also missed the blinkies on the back of the primary hull entirely, And also, there's no glowing purple there, which I always love that detail. There's in the little slits. It's missing a lot of things.
Well, to be fair, it's landed, so they're just powered down.
I don't know what that bit is, to be honest, to judge. It's just always a fun thing to have the grilling light through. That's what I say. It's a very flat version.
And you mentioned the red popping more. To be fair, this is in an atmosphere with natural light on it, so not in space. And so, yeah, the red, I think, might pop a little bit more. I don't know how much it shows in space necessarily in this episode, but I'm just plain devil's advocate there.
Well, no, it's not even that. It's just a version of possibility. But it's also that this varies depending on what you look at. Either this is a painted detail onto the hull, or it's a plating detail, right? You can take either approach, but clearly they're raised, right? So you get the shadowing, you get the three-dimensionality, but it makes it look a lot, for me, more like a toy because they really feel raised. It'd be even more subtle because the ship is still quite big. So that's, feet potentially of a plate to have a delta, whereas normally, especially on the miniature, it was just, painted or incredibly subtle. So that kind of makes it pop because you're getting the 3D at the shadow. And I'm wondering if, and I'm wondering mostly because the left hand with the shadow, is it self-illuminating? Like, is there like a 2% luminosity value to make the whole thing pop irrespective of what lighting it's in? Because it has a certain pop of like, you see it no matter what. I wonder. It's very bright.
But I love that those plating details are there. I kind of like that they look raised. It almost feels like those are extra armor plating for vulnerable systems. Like underneath there or whatever. Because of the way they kind of line up. And the configuration they're in, you can imagine that there's extra crucial stuff under there. That
ablative hull lines.
Yes.
Next shot, the landed configuration. And this is a shot you really got to sort of stop and look at. Because there are two shots of this, and this is the best one. Boy, does that look cool. And kind of crazy.
And it makes perfect sense for the Defiant class to be able to land just because it is such a small ship. So I actually love seeing this. I'm actually upset now that we didn't see this in Deep Space Nine. Like, it would have made sense in so many instances to land the ship.
Just extremely expensive to make this work.
I do like the landing legs, though. Interesting configuration. And the one thing that I instantly clocked when I saw this episode, and I'm sure you did too, was that elevator thing that came down comes right out of the shuttle bay. So again, this is not the Defiant. This could be a different configuration entirely, not have a shuttle bay there. That's fine. But I think this is hella cool.
Yeah, I mean, clearly this is not a shuttle bay version, but it doesn't need to be, right? And of course, the Defiant wasn't a shuttle bay version until it was. I mean, there's the details are very distinct on the bottom, and they only exist in a few shots, so that's all good. And it is honestly a big waste of space if you don't need a shuttle. It takes up a huge amount of that internal volume because it's a multi-layered, multi-leveled thing. It is a big waste of space if you're not going to actually use it. So absolutely buy this. And yes, having the functionality and the confidence to say, right, we're not going to shuttle onto a ship or planet, we're going to land. And therefore this version is needed. Gives you a lot of flexibility in a way that like you wouldn't have with a shuttle.
The one thing I will say about this now, staring at this still, I didn't notice this at the time, is that these creatures are quite large, or the ship is scaled wrong. Because if you go back to the last picture, you see it from the top, you can actually see the people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I remember in the episode thinking, okay, yeah, those seem to scale correctly to the ship. That's fine. Looking at this one, though, I know a lot of them are closer, but you look at the ones on the hull, these are... they're just not scaled properly, is all I'm saying. Small thing, but if you look at the windows on the inner side of that underpart, you can see, like, there's problems, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like that famous shot of the Vortra and the Defiant, that doesn't work at real scale. So if these things were at the correct scale, I'm sure they did that, and they thought, that's just not impressive. So they quote-unquote ruined the shot. And as Weed said, this is hard to even notice. It's such a quick love letter to the shot, but you miss it. You're not meant to stay and look at it for the 2 minutes we've already done it. Yeah, totally out of scale, but you kind of need that for this to work. That said, these are the basketball players. All guys. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's fine.
especially designed to go in and look around alien ships, I guess.
Prod stuff. It's fine. Another little thing to note, there's a lot more plate detail visible here than the other shot at the front, because they also realize it can't be as bland. This is far more representative of the other version. You can see the pulse phase cannons. They're just lit green and red. It's the same detailing, incorrectly lit. Someone just didn't know or didn't care or did it weird. Whatever. And you can see the top on the nose. Those plates that are meant to be very subtle are really big and raised. Part of why it feels so different. Everything's extended out in a way that really destroys the scale of the ship, but it gives it a pop that, whatever. But it's a really cool shot. I kind of want to replicate this in a fan film because this behind an actor would look so incredible.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, goodbye Shuttle Bay, rip. Next shot though is the close-up of the two elements because we saw it all, right? As long as you freeze frame the right moment. And thoughts?
The landing legs are interesting. I love that they kind of telescope into each other as you would need to do to save the room for those. The elevator turbolift thing is just pretty standard, honestly. I'm going to call out something that's not ship related, but their pants are obviously wet, and when they get back on the bridge, they're obviously dry. Even though she complains about walking through the water. So, but no, I think I like this idea of a triple lift that lowers down like that for access. They could have done a lot of things. They could have had like a ramp of some sort. They could have done multiple things, but this is interesting. And there is the front part of the Defiant, which was originally going to be the weapons pod, detachable weapons pod. And if you go back to the last picture, one thing I thought they would maybe do is have that when they land lower down and some kind of ramp come out of that, even if it goes down from the bottom backwards instead of coming out through the deflector, even though it docks at the deflector. And that's how they get onto Deep Space Nine as well. You could have done a lot of things with that because on the Playmates toy, that is maneuverable. It does move up and down.
And the Eagle Moss, it's wiggleable. This says to me, I see you, Oberth. I see you. Because that's how they connect, right? That singular turbolift pod kind of thing. That's what I see here, which for me makes me happy from that context. However, as you say, go back to the last picture, this would have been a really nice opportunity to do another canon fix, as it were. I don't quite believe it could go on that far. It's a lot of movement for that to work. It would look gangly. But if you did some, like, close as you can get it, and have the deflector actually, like, turn off and then slide and see the docking bay appear, and like, oh, that's how that works, and then the ramp come down, would be like, they just fix the canon issue of how you do both a deflector and a docking. That would have been beautiful, but this is a much cooler visual to me personally. It keeps the ship shape while adding something versus like doing a big, it's kind of a cluster F of design, whatever. But I really like it. And of course, they're Voyager landing legs, right? 95% just scaled down. So cool. Works for me. Perfect. There's no hatch to them, but when has it ever stopped them before? Speaking of stopping them before, this made me go, huh? Did you ever once think that was a phaser strip? Because I never once did.
Nope, but when I saw it, I go, that works so well. I like that. I thought that was a cool feature. And yeah, I never saw that in Deep Space Nine. As you said, it's always the pulse phasers. But damn, that's cool. Again, caveat, Section 31 ship, could be different tech on there. That's fine.
Mm-hmm. And I would rather caveat it is an additional phaser strip designed for them versus that's normal, because they, like, not once in how many battles did not a single artist through any VFX house say that strip is a phaser, let's use it? Not once. So I'm going to go with they didn't know because it wasn't. And it's not quite a phaser strip design, although you could easily tweak it. But it's cool.
I saw what they did and I appreciated it. I thought that was a nice little touch.
I mean, if you replace pulse phasers with Christmas tree lights, then where else are you going to get phasers from?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Next shot, though, let's do the comparison with a Hero model from DS9, Hero TV model, which was very well done at the time. As you can see, significantly nicer. But of course it was a Hero TV model, even from 19... Good for them, right? Because it looks a lot cooler. Yeah. Try to get it close enough angle-wise. Wasn't perfect, but yeah. Not the Defiant. We get it. A Defiant variant. Okay, now what do you think, Stuart?
Yeah, there are a lot of subtle little differences, especially in that plating detail at the the front there by the Delta. It's much bigger, more advanced. Again, yes, we know it's a different ship. Honestly, very close. There seems to be a more smoothing effect, like a rounding effect on the actual model itself, as opposed to more of kind of hard lines on this one. But maybe that's why I like this one better too. I don't know. All the little subtle things that your brain sees, but you don't like you don't understand, pop out here to me, and I think that's why I really was impressed with the way the ship looked in this episode, as opposed to the actual Defiant. Even the front module pod is shaped
Pretty
a little different
yeah.
and more slender, which I think for me looks better.
Yeah, and they did change the front pod as the CG version improved. This is a closer version of the miniature. This is how more it was meant to be. No, this is it's actually very different while being it's Defiant. I think the fact they got the overall shapes so good, apart from the front pod, is the testament to how it feels right. But yeah, there's a lot, and there's again 30-year ago CG, well, 25 year ago CG model, and it's way smoother. They actually did less curves on a 2024 CG model with the poly count that you can go into 2 million wouldn't be an issue. It's so fascinating they chose to make that second back pit almost squared off. And it does change the feel quite a lot. It gives it a more distinct bit versus curved, slender, sleek. It's really interesting how that did. And the plating is, I mean, they've definitely taken like a Sharpie and drawn half the plating, but also we can ignore this, we can move this, we can change this, because it is so the same but different. I mean, they're missing / don't do proper pinstriping on half the hull, but it changes the vibe. It gives it a different feeling. The side pods, the plating's close but not perfect, and you've got that side detail I said a minute ago, the extruding, it's not the same. Easy to build, not the same. But why not? You've got differently placed and transporter emitters that aren't what they should be, and phaser strips, and maybe things are different.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it, honestly. It looks really good. Both versions are great. I love that this is just a more advanced, many years later, and also special ops kind of ship, that it would look a little different.
Although it's really funny, they've kept the registry spotlight for no registry. Which is not used in most versions. That's only for a couple of distinct shots and first contact. Two things I'm really seeing that do affect it to me, the design wise. Obviously the nose is very different, fine. But the fact that those side blue circles are entirely different. They are so much thinner, and so they feel almost insignificant, and then they themselves are glowing, not underneath them, because in the real one it's they're doing something with a glow underneath. On the real Defiant, they're much bigger, they take more of the space, and they feel more of a presence. So that gives it a very different feel.
Older tech versus newer tech. The Defiant's a little bit older. This is just an improved upon version, maybe.
I mean, disagree improved, but different. Missing is quantum launchers. There aren't the slits. God, this thing has no goddamn weapons. It's missing all the weapon parts. Goodness. Because that's what the slits are.
Section 31 is trying to change their image. They don't want to be aggressive, so they have no weapons on their ships.
You don't think all Section 31 are warriors, do you?
Oh, see, that's clever. That's funny. I like that.
And the second thing was that the front pod is now in the hull almost, versus the distinct separation. It feels as integrated in a way the one doesn't. Just changes it that little bit.
And here you can see, the front of the engines, the Blizzard collectors are red on the Defiant, blue here. So I never clocked that. At least consciously. Like I said, subconsciously, I probably noticed it, and that's why I'm like, ooh, this ship looks different, looks good. So,
next shot, the front. Again, no sins be held back. Your thoughts?
Wow, this is very close. They definitely do their homework at Lower Decks, that's for sure.
I mean, just email old Eaglemoss employees, get the orthos. I mean, it is that easy, right? It's a very easy model to do.
But yeah, you can see as you were talking about the pulse phasers there and how they are just now lights. I like them better as pulse phasers.
Like at the very least, oh my god, look. No, they've swapped now again. Now the green blinky's on the right side. So they can't even keep the blinky light consistent between different shots of the same ship. Oh, different artist, different day, did it wrong. I mean, we know Low Decks is kind of bad at blinkies. We called them out for various years and they finally fixed them, but they just can't. It's an easy rule to do, but I guess if you're not a Trek fan, you're just doing this as a job rendering. Does it matter that the one is red and one's green? It's like, well, you would think you'd know. I mean, I noticed it straight away.
I just want to clarify, he's not saying Mike McMahon is not a Trek fan, but the artist the
animator
might not have been. The animator might not have been.
Yeah, I mean, this is a mistake
that got
through.
Trek.
Yeah. Well, this is the correct version. The other one was a mistake.
Yeah.
But yeah, that front pod is so different. I mean, I got this very close angle wise, considering, and so it's not camera distortion quite as much. Really different. Just thinner, simpler. Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, you can see how much thinner it is because the plating, I mean, you can see it's raised in this version, and it's just implied in the real Defiant that the now phaser strip is connected to the plates, whereas in the real version there's a nice split between everything, a space. That tells you you've definitely shrunk it by a good, well, like 6 or 7%, which again all adds up, right?
Even the bottom portion where the shuttle bay would be, that's kind of bulked out on the Defiant. Here it's much just flat. It's just different.
Yeah, it's simpler. But very close details, just simpler. Gotta commend them though, the windows are bloody identical. Or basically. Like they put like the window placement because those are right there. And that you could change. No one would mind because windows can move, right?
That's insane, yeah. Windows can't move, but designs for windows can change between different iterations of the ship.
Yeah. Yeah, just room placement, yeah.
It's looking out a window and all of a sudden it decides to move. It's like, no.
Another small thing that you could be forgiven for not realizing, because this is all like we're Trekyards, right? This is the comparative minutia. On the original version, the quantum launchers are those slits between the basards and the deflector, right? They're little. It's a triangle with some slits in, and the quantums somehow come out of those slits. Cool. On the Defiant, this version, those triangle bits are now extruding plates, which still sort of keep the vibe, but by being literally the reverse. It's now extruding, so not quantums, it's now just armor plating. So they have removed the quantum launchers as well. Gosh.
Bad choice for Section 31 ship, in my opinion, but...
Hey, this is a peace spy ship. It's fine. Next view is the back. Easy to not do quite as well. And again, disclaimer, this is the Defiant, and this is the last CG model, which is used the most, in fairness. But there are earlier versions where the back is a bit more blocky, and this to me looks a bit closer to that, because I do recall some of those being different. So they might just be, I don't know why they'd be using like a 1-episode version of the Defiant that you can see in SD. Don't know necessarily why, but like that is actually, the angularness is very different on the back. It's simpler, it's blockier. Details are phenomenal, but everything's just a bit off. Oh, and it's even thinner. They've even compressed it down.
Yeah,
oh,
I was
wow.
just going to say that.
So the stepping is wow, they've actually added a whole new step, haven't they? Yeah, they have. Wow, by shrinking the back segment so much, there's now a new step in the back, which does change it. Wow. And I said wow, and I wasn't being snarky. I said wow, they introduced a new step into a design as a cartoon.
As we realized it, yeah. It's like,
I believe this. This is wow, my life, eh?
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, you'd say, yeah, it's the same. But when you actually compare, it's amazing how many subtle differences there are. Some not so subtle, but yet they're still subtle with the way that they kind of come across.
And it's one of those things that when you decide to build the main hull so differently, you have to readjust the greebles. So at some point, they probably said, oh no, either we've done this wrong, let's just continue the path we've done, or they've decided to make it different in their own style and everything's adjusted around it, because it's such a distinct change that does change the back so much. Wow, yeah. Hey, well done to 2002, right, for DS9's model, whatever model year this was, because it's still a great piece of whatever. Wow, yeah. So yeah, ending back on the first picture, what a journey that only Trekyards can do. It is what we do. So how do you feel, Stuart, now you've come out the other side? Do you feel better for it? Do you feel refreshed? In Defiant love, or new love, as it were?
I have new love for this ship, the ANAXIMANDER. I don't know. Like I said, I really, really appreciated the way it looked in the show, and I didn't know why, because I wasn't the hugest Defiant fan. Now that I've seen all the little subtle changes and differences in colors and all that, I think that's why it kind of popped a little bit differently to me. My brain said, this is something I recognize, but it's also new. And it was like, oh, cool. So yeah, I gotta praise them for this shot. It's at warp. It's the proper warp effect. I mean, Lower Decks does that all the time, but still, new Star Trek should get a clue. Anyway, yeah, this has been a fun little journey. So what did you think now that you've actually kind of compared it, though? Like, there's a lot of things you noticed while we were talking?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I do these. I knew it was close, but as you said, I mean, obviously the Bassards are silly. The Blinkies being wrong. The obvious things are obvious, right? Fine, but yeah, realizing how many either choices they made or compromises. But it's funny, like I said, they could have taken this 3D model, they would have had it available if they just asked licensing, and they could have just retextured the original model. They would have had actually more detail, pre-finished, for free, if they'd asked the higher-ups, right? So they obviously made these choices and added more Christmas lights. But yeah, a Defiant without pulse phase, without quantums, and without, a shuttle bay. A lot of choices. No, it's good. It's fun. It's I hope to see more of it in part 2. And precedent setting. It wouldn't take that much to change our Defiant custom model into a universe hopping.
To be fair, it could be that the Defiant, in fact, did not have a landing capability. This one does, hence having to get rid of the shuttle bay, change internal volume around.
Where do the legs go, right?
Yeah.
And if you need to have deuterium storage because you no longer have Bassards, fill up the internal space. Yeah, I absolutely, like, it all makes sense. It's just interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it's good. And I look forward to looking at the inside, which I think will be closer, as in close to what it was. There's less room to change that without really feeling different, because a lot of the stuff's subtle, right? Whereas, if you don't put the back wall there, you're going to feel it. So we'll look at the interior, look at the ring ship, all that stuff to come. This was fun.
Welcome back to Trekyards, everybody. He's Commander Cockings. And today we're here to talk about the USS ANAXIMANDER, a Defiant class ship, as seen in Season 5, Episode 9 of Lower Decks, Section 31 ship.
And if you want to support what we do here and this level of insane breakdown, because come on guys, no one else can, should, or would do this, because that's our job. Support us via Patreon if you can monthly, or join the channel also monthly. Any amount from $5 to $100 to $1,000. Hey, it's appreciated. Or one-time donations via super chatting on a live if you want to say hey, or even super thanking on this video if you found stuff that you're like, whoa, I never saw it before. Put it in there and say hi via super thanks, or just like. All those normal things are all free as well. Any support helps, Stuart. So if you can, please do. He's Captain Foley. Bye, guys.
Get it.